Today on Sports Central, we cover our next team projection of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Auburn Tigers, a team that went 6-5 last season. Overall, kind of a disappointment of a season for Auburn, and they've made some big changes over the course of the past couple of months as they've gotten rid of Gus Malzahn, and they're moving on to Bryan Harsin, new head coach. Should make for an interesting 2021 season for Auburn. We're going over a full game preview and prediction for this team here today, starting out with the previous 6 games for Auburn. And if you look at this team over the course of last season, I mean, it was pretty underwhelming. This team, especially down the stretch, did not play as well. They were 2-3 in their last 5 games. They beat LSU 48-11. That was a huge win there, especially considering LSU was just kind of on the rise there at that point in the season. They were starting to get better and better. They did beat Tennessee 30-17. They got blown out by Alabama and Tuscaloosa 13-42 was the final score in that matchup. We also saw them lose to Texas A&M 20-31 was the final score in that one. Did beat Mississippi State though 24-10, and that was before losing to Northwestern in their bowl game 19-35. So for Auburn here, I mean, they got some good wins last season for sure. I mean, that LSU win especially was very impressive for Auburn. 48-11 was the final score there. First 6 games for Auburn, they were 4-2, and in the last 5 they were 2-3. So that was kind of, I mean, towards the end of the season, that was when they actually fired Gus Malzahn. It was kind of a surprise to me to see them fire him, especially before their bowl game. Like, they didn't even made it to their bowl game, and they already fired him. So that was kind of an interesting event there for Auburn. But this team definitely, I think, has got potential moving forward. They got some great recruiting coming in. Auburn could be a team to watch out for in the future. But if you look at your roster preview, got some great returning production for sure, especially on the offensive side. It looks pretty good. I mean, you got Bo Nix coming back. Last season, he put up 2,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and a 60% completion rate. So, I mean, Bo Nix, especially in comparison to his 2019 season, it wasn't as good in 2020 as it was in 2019, but Bo Nix, I still think has got some good potential moving forward for Auburn and this team in general. They returned their top running back in Tank Bigsby. That's going to be a huge return there as he had 900 yards last season, 5 touchdowns. Watch out for him next year. He's definitely going to be a key player on this offensive side. Sean Shivers is also coming back, second running back for this team. Put up just over 330 yards as well as a touchdown last year, so it was a pretty good season for him as well. Running back core all around looks great. The main thing that concerns me about Auburn though next season is the receiving core. They lose a ton in the receiving core. They're basically going to have a brand new receiving core next season. Seth Williams has taken off. He will not be with the team next season, and he put up 760 yards and 4 touchdowns for Auburn last season. That is going to be a brutal loss there in Seth Williams. Anthony Schwartz is also taken off. He won't be with the team next season, so that's going to be another tough loss. He put up just over, looks like 600 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. Eli Stove is also not going to be with the team. 350 yards is what he had last season. So all around, I mean, losing their top 3 wide receivers is going to be a pretty tough hill to climb moving on to next season. I mean, Bo Nix is a great quarterback. I really do believe that he can lead this team to a good season, and especially a definitely a winning season. But Bo Nix, I mean, when he doesn't have his receivers coming back, that's going to be definitely a big question mark for Auburn next season, is whether or not this receiving core is going to have enough depth to be able to make it to a good season. Because Auburn here, I mean, you're losing 3 receivers. That's going to be a tough thing to overcome there. But they do lose 1 linebacker, 2 in the secondary on the defensive side. So you do lose 3 starters on the defensive side, which, I mean, that's right around average. Most teams lose right around 3 to 4 defensive players per season. So really, I mean, that's not something that really comes as a big concern to me. But offense takes a huge hit, I would say, in the receiving core for sure. Otherwise, offense looks really great. Like, this offensive line really isn't losing anything. So I'd say the offense looks good. I mean, it's just the receiving core that's really the big stone there that's going to be pretty tough for Auburn to overcome. But the defensive part definitely looks great for Auburn. Like, once again, you're only losing 3 starters for the most part. Linebacking core does lose 2 there, or linebacking core lose 1. The secondary loses 2, so you definitely got to watch out for that. But all around, for Auburn, looks pretty good for next season. New head coach with Bryan Harsin. It's going to be very interesting to see how he does in his first season, especially considering Gus Malzahn took off on such a rough note at the end of last season. Like, once again, it just really surprised me that they didn't keep Gus Malzahn for the bowl game. I mean, you already got Gus Malzahn. It just kind of surprised me to see them get rid of him right away. But either way, Bryan Harsin is now your new head coach, and that's going to be something that's definitely going to be a very interesting storyline moving forward. Looking at your schedule for next season, then of course you got Akron to start off the season on September 4th, Alabama State to follow. So really your first 2 games are going to be very easy games. I could easily see Auburn putting up like 50 to 60 points in both of those. Like, Akron was probably one of the worst FBS teams last year, and then of course Alabama State was also, or they are an FCS team. So they're not even in the FBS. But you got Penn State then on September 18th. That should make for an interesting matchup there because Penn State, I mean, Nittany Lions could be pretty improved next season. I'd definitely be on the lookout for them. Georgia State then on September 25th. That should be a win as well. So really your September isn't going to be all that difficult. Only big game that you got to really watch out for in your September is that Penn State matchup on the road on September 18th. You got LSU though on the road. Your October is going to be brutal. You got LSU on the road. You got Georgia then on October 9th. You got Arkansas on the road, which Arkansas, I mean, they are losing quite a bit of talent going into next season. But I mean, with that being on the road, and Arkansas was pretty improved last season, that could be a game to watch out for there. Ole Miss then on October 30th. Ole Miss was kind of in the same situation as Arkansas. I mean, they were quietly having a really good season. Ole Miss, I mean, they won their bowl game against Indiana. That could be an interesting matchup there. Texas A&M then on the road to start off your November. That's going to be a tough game there in College Station. You got Mississippi State then on November 13th. You got South Carolina on the road on the 20th. And then you finish out your season in the Iron Bowl as usual against Alabama. So really for Auburn here, you got, I mean, really your September's probably going to be your easier month. Definitely the easiest month on your schedule. October is going to be a tough one there. And of course, I mean, with Mississippi State and South Carolina, I'm not really worried about your November, but you definitely got to play two big national contenders there with Texas A&M and Alabama. But looking at the start of your season, the first 6 games with Akron and Alabama State, excuse me, I could easily see Auburn getting 2 major wins there. I could easily see Auburn scoring once again 50 to 60 points in both those games. I mean, both those teams are definitely not on Auburn's level. But then you got Penn State, of course, on the road on September 18th. Penn State is going to be an interesting team next season. They're going to be tough to predict. I mean, we saw how they were last season. They started out the season 0-5, but they really improved towards the end of the season. So for Penn State, they definitely will be an improved team. I'm not sure that Penn State will be a national contender by any means, but that could be an interesting matchup there. Then, of course, you got Georgia State. That's going to be a win. So you got 3 wins at least in your first 4 games. LSU then on the road. I think that, I mean, I'd probably favor Auburn right now to beat LSU, but LSU right now, I could easily see them being a very improved team next season. They've got, I think there was a stat, like they're returning, I think it's like pretty much every single starter that they have from last season except for 2. So that LSU team is going to be a scary one to look forward to. I mean, that is going to be a very interesting situation there in Baton Rouge with LSU, considering they're only losing a couple of starters on both sides of the ball. That is definitely a very rare occasion, and just kind of shows like how LSU declined after the 2019 season. I mean, they lost so much talent after 2019 and their national championship win into 2020. Like, they were just a very young team last season. They will be a team to watch out for this year, I can guarantee you, though. Then you got Georgia, of course, on October 9th. That could be an interesting matchup there. Georgia's going to be a really good team, though, next season, I can guarantee you as well. Georgia's returning a ton of talent. JT Daniels is coming back. That is going to be a tough team to beat there with Georgia. It is at home, though, for Auburn, so that is definitely a positive there. That's going to be a tough game there. I'm not going to quite favor Georgia completely in that game to say that Auburn's going to take a loss, mainly because it's in Auburn, but that definitely is going to be a tough game there against Georgia. As for the second half of your schedule, of course, you got Arkansas. I'm going to say that's going to be a win. I could see that game possibly being closer, but I'm going to give Auburn the benefit of the doubt right now with the win. Ole Miss is going to be a close one, I think. I just think Ole Miss, I mean, that team really improved over the course of last season. They're returning some good talent on both sides of the ball. That's going to be a closer one there. Texas A&M is going to be a close game there for sure. I definitely think Texas A&M is going to be a great team next season, though, especially with it being in College Station. That could be a pretty brutal game, especially if it's at nighttime. But Texas A&M, I'm going to keep it as a close game for now. I think Auburn definitely has got potential to win that one, but it's definitely going to be close. Texas A&M is going to be a good team next season. Mississippi State's going to be a win, so I got you getting at least 5 guaranteed wins in this upcoming season. Those are all the games in green. Then you got South Carolina, of course, on November 20th. I'm going to say that's a close one as well, mainly because it's on the road. Like, if that was a home game, I definitely give Auburn a guaranteed win there, but with it being on the road and an SEC conference team, that could come to be a close game there. But then you got Alabama, of course, at the end of the season, and we all know how it turned out against Alabama last year, but we have seen Auburn. They have had some success over Alabama over the past decade, so I think it's going to be close for now. I think Alabama is also going to be definitely a big college football playoff contender next season, so I'm not going to completely guarantee a win for either side there yet, but that's going to be a close one for sure against Alabama. Ceiling for Auburn is going to be 10-2 next season. I could easily see this team getting at least 10 wins. I think 10 wins is probably your cap for next season. Once again, considering the losing production on the offensive side with the receivers, that could come back to bite quite a bit. But 10-2 is going to be your ceiling here. 8-4 is going to be my projection for Auburn, and I really went back and forth between 9-3 and 8-4. I just think with LSU being on the road, I'd probably prefer LSU right now, probably. Georgia, that's going to be a tough one. Texas A&M's going to be tough. Alabama's going to be tough. I'm just not sure that Alabama can beat any of those 4 teams. Like, I definitely think there's a chance. But either way, even if they do beat LSU, I mean, there is still a chance they lose to Penn State or some other team like that. So projection is going to be 8-4 for Auburn next season. I think they'll have a good season, but not a great season in Auburn's terms. But 4 is going to be 7-5, so that's kind of the bare minimum that I expect out of Auburn. I think this team is definitely guaranteed to make it to a bowl game and at least get past that by a couple of wins. But yeah, projection is going to be 8-4 for Auburn. Let me know your thoughts, though, in the comments below on the Tigers. I appreciate you guys all watching. Yeah, stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys all later.